Let us turn to the 18th chapter of John, the 37th verse. We're studying another lesson on the beautiful way. And who is the way? Jesus. I am the way, he says, John 14:6. And is he beautiful? The chiefest among 10,000, the one altogether lovely. Now in this 18th of John, 37th verse, we have a wonderful statement from the lips of our Lord. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. What was Jesus born for? To bear witness unto what? The truth. And in this statement we have the two wonderful principles that I wish to study with you today. One is witnessing, the other is truth. They are two parts of the series of lessons on the beautiful way. And we shall take up first this one of truth. In our lesson yesterday, we were studying the difference between natural beauty and artificial beauty, genuine and counterfeit. You remember the other two words that we used? The true and the false. That's right. Natural beauty is true beauty. God's beauty is true beauty. Truth and beauty are closely associated. Now that verse that we started with the other day in John 14:6, Jesus says, I am the way, the beautiful way. And what's the next? The truth. The reason he bore witness of the truth, he was the truth. Put down in your notes, we'll not turn to these verses. Psalm 119, 142, God's law is the truth. John 17:17, His word is truth. Now you can see why His word and His law are truth, for they are the expression of what? His character, Himself, and since He is the truth, whatever He says is truth. Now turn please to John 8:44. And here we come to an individual that didn't find enough room within the boundaries of truth. He started something. Who was he? Satan, Lucifer, devil. Now what does it say about his relation to truth? He abode not in the truth. Was he in the truth once? You know, we use that expression today. How long have you been in the truth? It's nice. Be a good thing to stop and think about it. Wouldn't it be too bad to have to say, how long have you been out of the truth? Now, if we'd ask that question to Lucifer and he would tell the truth on that particular point, we'd say, how long have you been out of the truth? What would he say? For over 6,000 years. Is that right? Is that what this says? He abode not in the truth. What does it mean, he abode not in it? He didn't stay there. Was he in it once? Yeah. He got restless. Now, why do you suppose he abode not in the truth? There wasn't room enough. You know, there's something confining about truth. You stop and think about it. Suppose I have a blackboard here and I put down a list of numbers. 5, 18, 27, 3, 54, and I say to you, what's the answer to that question? You add it up and you say, well, that's such and such a number. How many right answers are there? How many?
One.
How many?
One.
Are you sure of that? Only one? Well, isn't that awfully narrow? Lucifer said the very idea. We'll change that. So he's been changing it now for 6,000 years. Just one right answer, but how many wrong answers? Innumerable? How many is that? Could you get as many as 100 wrong answers? Well, you see, the possibilities are limitless, friends. And given a mind of ingenuity such as Lucifer has, he really has a good time. In other words, he used his what? Imagination. Of course, in a way that God never intended. He's been helping a lot of other people use their imaginations, as we're going to see. He abode not in what? The truth. Yes. All right. And so as the result, he became not only a liar, but what else does this say he became? A murderer. Lying leads to murder. He is a liar and the father of it. What does it mean he's the father of it? Well, he's the one that made the lies. He's the father of lying. All right. 1 John 2:21. Does that mean, friends, while you're turning to this text, let me ask, the one we just read, does that mean that if you take any lie in the universe and trace it back to its source, you'd find Satan? Is that correct? My, what a lot he has to answer for. Be ashamed to work with him, wouldn't it? But he has a lot of helpers. 1 John 2:21. What are the last 6 words? No lie is of the truth. Well, you say, of course not. If it was a lie, it wouldn't be truth, and if it's truth, it wouldn't be a lie. It wouldn't be a lie. But it's amazing, simple as that is, how few people believe it. We'll see that as we get into our study today. Do you believe it? No lie is of the truth? Oh, a white lie would be all right, but it's just black lies. Now, a little lie would be all right. Of course, we wouldn't want a great big hog lie, but just a tiny little pig lie, that would be all right, wouldn't it? No lie is of the truth. Now, it's interesting how lies are made. We studied yesterday when we were studying nature and natural beauty that the devil is not a what? He's not a creator. The devil can't create anything. But he can do what? Pervert. Change. And the devil never originated anything. Everything the devil ever did, he did it by changing. Turn to Romans, the 1st chapter and the 25th verse. This is an important text, as you'll see as we look at it. This is talking about the heathen that listen to the devil's suggestions down through the ages of the world, from the fall of Adam. Romans 1:25, who changed the truth of God into a lie. What did the devil start with? Started with truth and did what? He changed it. Like that linoleic acid you were talking about the other night, Doctor. They start with something good and they rearrange the molecule. Change the truth of God into a what? Lie. Do you mean you can start with truth and end up with a lie? Is that possible? Yeah. In fact, that's what always happens. I don't suppose there was ever any lie invented that didn't have some truth in it. But the difficulty with a lie is that it is not what? It's not all truth. Who changed the truth of God into a lie. Now we have an illustration of this in the substance known as alcohol. Do you know how alcohol is made? Some of you do. Do you know what the devil starts with when he makes alcohol? What does he start with? Well, it can be grain, or it can be, let's take it in probably its first origin. You remember the first word concerning alcohol fermentation in the Bible? Grapes. We have some getting ripe over there on the hill. They're lovely. What is in that grape that can make alcohol? Sugar. What kind of sugar? Grape sugar, glucose sugar, same sugar as the blood. Is that good or bad? Oh, it's good. It's good in the grape, it's good in the blood. It's good in between, too, in the mouth and stomach, isn't it? Yeah. But did you know, you can read about it in the first chapter of the book Temperance, the prophet of God listened in on a secret council of the devil that was held thousands of years ago. And when he had asked all the devils to present a plan for accomplishing the most in the degradation of human beings, when they had submitted all their plans, the devil himself suggested the plan. Of course, the devil got the prize. You know what it was? It was taking the fruit of the earth and making alcohol out of it. That is the devil's master experiment from his laboratory. What does he do? He takes that glucose sugar molecule and changes it to make ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide gas. That's the devil's, I was about to say, secret formula. He's let a lot of other people in on it. Now my point is, that's the way he does with what we're studying. He changes the truth of God, the pure, delicious grape sugar of truth, into a what? A lie. And men that don't know any better take it and drink it. That's the wine of Babylon. It's lies made from truth. Perversions. But remember, no lies of the truth. 2 Thessalonians 2:10-12. Now, if you wonder why we're studying these things, you just be thinking about their practical application. Because this is a very important lesson in many, many areas of life. But we're getting the Bible foundation for it. 2 Thessalonians 2:10-12. That's talking about the people down here in the last generation that are deceived by Satan. And the 10th verse tells us why. That they are deceived. Last part of the verse. Why is it? Because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. Everybody then in the world will either love the truth or what? Believe a lie. Now you notice it says they'll believe a lie. Oh, friends, you remember I told you the other day what a serious responsibility it is to sit in this class and hear these things day after day? It'd be much better never to hear them than to dull the conscience by failing to enter in to their deep study and then living the principles out as fast as you see them. Because unless we receive the love of the truth, what will happen to the mind? What does this say? We'll be deceived and we'll do what? Believe a lie. Believe a lie. Is a lie still a lie when you believe it? Oh, yes. And the 12th verse says they're all going to be damned, that is, condemned, lost. Lost souls, millions of them, go right down to hell thinking they're on the good way, but they're on the wrong way. God save us from it. Now let's go to the last book of the Bible, last chapter, Revelation 22:15, and take a look at hell. The 14th verse shows the beautiful way and where it leads to. Blessed are they that do His commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in, where? Through the gates into what? The city. For without, that is outside the city, are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and who else? And whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Where are the people that make lies going to be? They're going to be outside the city. Where are the people that love lies going to be? They're going to be out there with them. That's right. Suppose I have a book here and it's a book of lies. What's got to happen to the man that wrote that book of lies? He's got to be outside the city. Suppose I didn't write a word of it, but I like it, I read it, I love it. Where'll I be? I'll be right out there with him. Unless I get converted, unless he gets converted. Are there books with lies in them in the world today? Thousands upon thousands. Thousands upon thousands. Now yesterday we studied that the opposite of true is what? False. But when we take this word truth, what word do we often use as the opposite of it, and rightly so? Truth and error? Yes. All right. Another one. What? Yes, but truth. The opposite of truth. What? I didn't hear. A lie. All right. Yeah. Falsehood. All right. There's another one. You'll get to it. Truth is stranger than fiction. Are truth and fiction the same? No. If a thing is truth, is it fiction? No. No, truth is not fiction. And fiction is not truth. If it were, it wouldn't be fiction. And no lie is of the truth. All right? Now turn to 1 Corinthians 13:6. Here's a little text I like about the truth. And as you look at this text, I want to ask you a question. What does it take to make you happy? First Corinthians 13:6. This is talking about love. Love rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth where? In the truth. What does it take to make love happy? It takes the truth. But there are many people in the world, truth is just like grape juice. It has to be fermented in order to be, have some life in it. And so they change truth into a lie. Did you ever see some books, at the beginning it says this is based on fact? Look out. Like those labels the doctor told us the other night we ought to read carefully. How would you like to open the Bible and at the beginning read based on fact? That's what some of the more lenient of the higher critics think the Bible is. It's based on fact. Is the Bible based on fact? It's better than that. It is fact. It is fact. It's not just based on it. It's fact all the way through. Foundation, superstructure, and on to the roof. It's all true. And no lie is of the truth. Love rejoices in the truth. Makes love happy to hear the truth. It doesn't have to have fiction to get happy. Now, I want to, with these wonderful points before us, I want you to turn to that sheet that I put out there for you a little while ago, entitled A Spurious Basis for Happiness. Jordan will give any of you that missed them one of them. Just hold up your hands. I want you to look at this. I want you to see, folks, the great difference between the joy and the happiness and the satisfaction that comes from truth and the excitement and fun and so-called pleasure that comes from the perversion of truth. Fiction, lies. Now, there are two great avenues that the devil has to get perverted truth, which is a lie, into human beings. One is through the mouth and the bloodstream. The other is through the eyes and ears into the brain and mind. But the effect of what happens through the two different avenues is so wonderfully similar and parallel that it's worth noting. We'll see the physical first. How the devil makes people think what isn't so. Now, this statement that I have put in your hands in mimeograph form is from Dr. David Starr Jordan, for many years the president of Leland Stanford University in California. The basis of intemperance is the effort to secure through drugs the feeling of happiness when happiness does not exist. What do people want? They want happiness. Is it all right to want happiness? Yes. But it's too bad to try to get the feeling when it isn't so. That would be a what? That'd be a lie, and no lie is of the truth. And the devil has invented various drug poisons to accomplish that. Alcohol is one of them. We've been noticing about that. But we'll see others. The basis of intemperance is the effort to secure through drugs the feeling of happiness when happiness does not exist. Men destroy their nervous system for the tingling pleasures they feel as its structures are torn apart. There are many drugs which give this pleasure, and in proportion to the delight they seem to give is the real mischief they work. Then Dr. Jordan introduces this illustration. He says, suppose that if a man would put his fingers on an anvil and hit them with a hammer, that the brain, instead of interpreting that shock as pain, would by some abnormality interpret it as pleasure. And the man would look there and he'd see his fingers bleeding, but he'd just keep hitting them with a hammer because it made him feel good, you understand. Wouldn't that be a terrible thing? Well, he says that's what drugs do. Now, notice in the middle of that paragraph, the impulse of delight would plead for their repetition, that is, keep hitting the fingers with a hammer. And in this fashion, the hand might be sacrificed for a feeling of pleasure which is no pleasure at all, but a form of mania. Now watch as we come to the key sentence. Of this character is the effect of all nerve-exciting drugs. All of them. As a drop of water is of the nature of the sea, so in its degree is the effect of alcohol, opium, tobacco, cocaine, cola, tea, or coffee of the nature of mania. What is mania anyway? It's from the same word we get maniac. In other words, a person that's insane, doesn't think straight, thinks what isn't so. In other words, he believes a lot. Believes a lot. And what does Dr. Jordan say will cause that? All these different drug poisons. Do you see why the devil invented them all? He wants people to think they're happy when instead they're being damaged. And he's persuaded millions and billions of Earth's inhabitants to do that. Don't you feel sorry for the people of this world, folks? The next paragraph goes on to say that these poisons, as they are repeatedly used, finally cause the nervous system to get to the place where it can't even tell the truth anymore. Study that page, and I think you'll want to keep it in your file. It is a powerful statement. Now, just today I noticed that somebody has discovered, or thinks they have discovered, that eating the seeds of a certain plant will have an effect, something like that. And so, lo and behold, people are out trying to get it. Morning glory seeds. It's just this morning's paper. Listen. The Food and Drug Administration is investigating reports of an out-of-season run on morning glory seeds in Boston, New York, and California. The seeds have been reported in 2 articles to contain hallucination-causing substances, including lysergic acid amides. Presumably the seeds are eaten by persons for the alleged intoxicating effects, although they apparently have to eat several hundred. Then it goes on and tells about it. Isn't that too bad, friends? Human beings just hunting for some new way to believe a lie, to feel happy when they're not happy. Now, like I said on another subject the other day, it's pitiful. It isn't a matter of blaming the poor people, but we're to offer them what? Something better. And isn't truth better than a lie? Don't we get more real pleasure out of good food and pure water and sweet grape juice and orange juice and all the other delicious natural things that God has given us? Don't we get more real pleasure than all the fun and foolish ideas that people get under the influence of liquor or tobacco or tea or coffee? Don't we? Do you really like truth better than fiction on that level? All right. Now let's turn to the other area. What enters the personality through the eye and ears? Do you know what the great appeal of the movies is? TV, novels, stories of all kinds, whether they're these Western stories or love stories or science fiction stories or historical novels or all the rest. You know what the appeal of all that, the common denominator of all of it? It's the unreal, the fictitious. It's exciting. Is it true or false? It's false. False. And in Adventist Home, page 414, we're shown that this is just like the drinking of liquor. Readers of frivolous, exciting tales live in an unreal world. They are restless, dreaming. Intemperate habits of reading have an effect upon the brain similar to that which intemperate habits of eating and drinking have upon the body. To place before this class reading similar to that which they have discarded is like offering intoxicants to the inebriate. So is the cure for bad novels good novels? No. Any more than the cure for whiskey drinking is to give people beer or wine. Now turn please to your ministry of healing. And I wish you'd put down in your notes 443 to 447. What's the name of this chapter? The faults and the true in education. On 443 it starts out and describes the classics from Greek and Latin. We'll see what it says about those. 444, what does it deal with? Sensational literature. 445, romance. And then it comes to what? High-class fiction. That's the kind to read, isn't it? Well, if there was a place to find that it was all right, this would be the place to look for it, wouldn't it? All right. You'll be interested in what's said here. It says there are works of fiction that were written for the purpose of teaching truth. Isn't that an interesting way to teach truth? There are works of fiction that were written for the purpose of teaching truth or exposing some great evil. Some of these works have accomplished good. What's the next word? Yeah. What does that mean? Wasn't all good. Yet they have also wrought untold harm. Do you remember one specific book of fiction that the Spirit of Prophecy says accomplished good and yet it's done harm? You remember one particular book? What was it? Uncle Tom's Cabin, mentioned by name, Volume 5. The Seventh-day Adventist minister who later left the truth, part way out when he wrote the article, probably. His name is Canwright. He put in the Review and Herald a list of books recommended for our young people. One of them was Uncle Tom's Cabin, another Robinson Crusoe. You can read about it in Volume 5 in the chapter Suitable Reading for Children. Sister White wrote him clear from Europe. Told him not to do that. Now notice at the bottom of 445. Even fiction which contains no suggestion of impurity and which may be intended to teach excellent principles is harmful. You grammarians, what's the subject of that sentence? Stripped of all the rest of the sentence. What's the subject? Fiction. What's the verb? Is. What's the word that goes to complete the predicate? Harmful. Let's say the three words together. Fiction is harmful. Once again. Fiction is harmful. Why do you suppose it is? Because it's not of the truth, and no lie is of the truth. It encourages the habit of hasty and superficial reading merely for the story, tends to destroy the power of connected and vigorous thought, fosters love for mere amusement, creates a distaste for life practical duties. We're over on 446 now, following right along. Then it says, through its exciting, intoxicating power. What does fiction have? Exciting, intoxicating power. Will it amuse then and entertain? Will it keep people awake? Yes. Some of you would be quite more alert right now if I could throw some wonderful fiction on the screen here. Many a miserable, neglected home, many a lifelong invalid, many an inmate of the insane asylum has become such through the habit of novel reading. Does alcohol take people to the insane asylum? What about that, doctor? Is that recognized? Well, here's another way to accomplish the same thing. What is it? Through fiction. If you want a cross-reference on that, Messages to Young People, page 290 says there are thousands of people in insane asylums that have gotten there through the habit of reading fiction. Thousands of them. Now, do you know why? Because insanity is simply believing the unreal. I want to read you something from a great novel writer. All I know about him is what I'm going to read you here. But those who are acquainted with the literature of the world would probably recognize the name of Joseph Conrad, great novel writer. And from the life and letters of Joseph Conrad, I present his testimony after years of fiction writing. This is Conrad writing himself. Listen while this novelist tells you what fiction writing does. It is a fool's business to write fiction for a living. It is indeed. It is strange. The unreality of it seems to enter one's real life, penetrate into the bones, make the very heartbeats pulsate illusions through the arteries. One's will becomes the slave of hallucinations, responds only to shadowy impulses, waits on imagination alone. A strange state, a trying experience, a kind of fiery trial of untruthfulness. And one goes through it with an exaltation as false as all the rest of it. One goes through it and there's nothing to show at the end. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Do I want to go down that road, friends? I don't. For two reasons. I don't like that road, and I do like the other road. Oh, I've tasted truth. It's sweet. It's precious. And I want another slice out of that melon. What do you say? Great big juicy red watermelon. And is there plenty in truth to keep us busy? We're going to study it through all eternity. I've sometimes said that the reason God is going to give us an eternity of time is because there's an infinity of truth to explore. We're not going to run out of the joy or thrill of it here in this little life, friend. Oh, that God may spare us from the unnatural excitement, intoxication of fiction. So I want you to study carefully these pages in Ministry of Healing that I have mentioned here. You notice at the bottom of 447, we have an abundance of that which is what? Real. And in the middle of the page, it tells how often to go the other way. When? How often is that? Never should books containing a perversion of truth be placed in the hands of children or youth. But it's all right in a literature course, isn't it? It's all right in order to get acquainted with the great authors, isn't it? You study into what the Spirit of Prophecy has to say on that subject. In this chapter, in Fundamentals of Christian Education, Counsels to Teachers, if you're interested in that. I simply introduce these principles. Now, but suppose it's religious. I want to ask you something. Does the wine of Babylon get better when it's poured into the golden vessels of the sanctuary? What? It's worse, you say. I agree with you. And the hand of doom wrote on the palace wall of Babylon when Belshazzar reached that point in impious blasphemy, when he poured the wine of Babylon into the golden vessels of the house of God. And don't think, friends, that fiction and drama and all these other unreal things get better when they're brought into the house of God and mixed with religious topics. They get worse. Get worse. If I had to choose, I rather as a child would see a wild western movie than to see a religious, fictitious presentation on the screen. Now, thank God we don't have to have either one. Let me read you something interesting from the servant of the Lord. This was printed in the Review and Herald of October 25, 1928. It was written in a letter to the editor of the Review and Herald back in 1911. Parents, do not encourage your children to read literature that will be no help to them spiritually. Do not encourage them to read the story of the life of Christ in the form of a novel. I wonder why Sister White put that in there. Do not encourage them to read the story of the life of Christ in the form of a novel. Has the life of Christ ever been written in the form of fiction? Yes, more than once, friends. More than once. And probably one of the times that I was more intoxicated than any time in my life. You say, Brother Frazee, I didn't know you was ever drunk. I never was with wine or whiskey or gin or rum. But I was with a novel. It was a novel on the life of Christ. When I was a boy, I got intoxicated. I don't want to get intoxicated again. Do you? No. The wine of Babylon, I repeat, is not improved when it's poured into the vessels of the house of God. Volume 2, 236. The world is flooded with novels of every description. Some are not of as dangerous a character as others, but all are pernicious in their influence. Now I leave that. Now what did Jesus say that he was born to do? Bear witness of what? truth. What were you born for? You born for the same thing? As the Father has sent me, Jesus said, so send I you. Acts 1:8, ye shall be what? Witnesses unto me. And in the celebrated definition, a witness is one who what? Tells what he knows, what he's seen or heard, or experienced. Now, yesterday we were studying the difference between the natural and the artificial, the true and the false, the genuine and the counterfeit. Do you know what the counterfeit of witnessing is? Acting. Acting. The actor on the stage. The Greeks had a word for it. Do you know what the Greeks called the actor on the stage? A hypocrite. That's right. That's where we get our word hypocrite. It comes from the Greek meaning an actor on the stage. Now, none of you here this afternoon would think of going to a theater, and so you say, well, we won't need to spend much time on that. Well, what's wrong with the theater? Is it the lights? Is it the stage? I've held many an evangelistic meeting from a theater stage. I use the same lights and the same stage to give what? The truth. The problem isn't the place, or the stage, or the setting. The problem is what's done and how it's done. God sent His people to do what? Witness. But the theater is the place not for witnessing, but for acting. Theatricals. We call that form of presentation the drama. The drama. And for a few minutes I want to study it with you. Not to keep you from going to the movie, but to keep the movie from coming to you. That kind of movie. Let's make plain that a picture is not wrong because it moves. I've got a picture here that doesn't move at all. I want to pass it around and let you look at it. It's supposed to be a picture of the risen Christ talking to Mary at the tomb. It's nauseating to me, but it's put out by a religious film service in a slide. You can buy these Kodachromes on the life of Christ. Here's a man dressed up with some kind of a beard and hair that's been put on like the actors do. And this woman, she looks like a Hollywood actress dressed up to look like Mary. I don't think she looks any more like Mary than anything. But I just want you to pass it along so that you see what we're dealing with isn't a question of the moving picture, the still picture. It's the question of impersonation, of a person pretending to be what he isn't at all. That's the element of the drama. Just take it along. You don't just look at that first picture there. That's what I want you to see. Picture of Jesus and Mary. See if you think that looks like Jesus. See if you think it looks like Mary. Would it improve your understanding of the record there in the Bible to look at that on the screen, either as a movie or still? It's pretense. Is that Mary? Is it? Why no? And oh, I want to be reverent, friends, but is it Jesus? Is it? No. No. Well, then if it isn't the truth, what is it? It's a lie. It's a lie. And no lie is of the truth. Now, while we're studying this, I want you to think of the different ways this is used. Here we have a film. It's put on. It might be shown down here at the movie house. It might be shown in an institutional auditorium, in a sanitarium parlor. Might be shown in the church. It may be a religious film. It may be a story of the Reformation. It may be the life of somebody. The plot may be purely imaginary, or it may be supposed to be historical. In other words, the characters may be somebody that never existed, or they might be somebody that did exist. Let's illustrate it. Suppose we have a film here that shows Columbus. Here Columbus comes in before the King and Queen of Spain. He presents his plan for coming to the New Earth. The New World. And presently we see those ships leaving and crossing the Atlantic, and finally they arrive at San Salvador, that little island down there in the Bahamas. All right, the whole thing is graphic. I want to ask you something. Would it make quite an impression on an audience? Suppose we want to show the life of John Wesley, or George Washington, or Joseph Bates, or Martin Luther, or the Apostle Paul, or Moses, or Abraham. Would that be a graphic way of doing it? Does it make a vivid impression? Sure it does. Well, why not use it then? I can say this, friends. This is a subject that's hard to be neutral on. You either get enthusiastic in favor of it, or you get enthusiastic the other way. That is, if you study into the matter. All you need to do, brother, is just look at that front page. Now, I want to ask you a few questions about this drama. I wish you'd make a list of these 6 questions. First, where has God authorized its use? I'm talking about the matter of acting, impersonating, one person pretending to be what he isn't. Now remember, I'm not talking about moving pictures of real life. Suppose a moving picture camera is used to film a picture of our mission stations in Africa, the South Sea Islands. The actual students are there going into chapel. The actual patients are coming into the clinic. The doctor is there examining. And those pictures are brought back. Are those real or false? They're real. Are they true or fictitious? Is that witnessing or is it acting? That's witnessing. But suppose instead of that somebody dresses up here to act the part of somebody else. George Washington, Moody, Wesley, whoever. That's what I'm talking about, that impersonating. My first question is, where did God ever authorize anybody to do that sort of thing? Is that a fair question? Number 2, where did Christ use it? If you want to find the answer, Fundamentals of Christian Education 229. Number 3, the question is this presenting truth or falsehood? Or does it glorify God or the actor? Does it develop or ignore individuality? God had made everyone different. But the actor tries his best to act like what? Somebody else. And may I tell you on that, friends? I was reading in a medical journal that one of our doctors showed me some months ago. It's becoming quite a problem, the great numbers of Hollywood actors that are becoming schizophrenic. That's a type of insanity. Much higher percentage than the ordinary run of people. You can see why if you stop to think about it. The article went on to explain it. They're living much of their life in an unreal world. They're being somebody else over here and trying their best. And the better they can be that other person, the more successful they are. And then they drop back out of that into their ordinary life, and then back again into that unreal life. It's back and forth. And some of them finally get to the place where they are definitely schizophrenic. They're split personality, psychotic, insane, in other words. Isn't it pitiful, friends? Do I want to patronize a program that produces that sort of result? Even if it is entertaining and exciting and intoxicating. Now my sixth point is that this method breaks down the barrier against the theater. Put down in your notes, volume 4, 578. This was long before the moving picture camera or projector was invented. But back there in the old Battle Creek Sanitarium, Sister White saw coming in some simple plays to entertain the patients. Just skits or plays, as we'd call them today. And she was led by the Spirit of God to warn against those things. You can read it there in volume 4, page 578. The stir against the theater. That's the sixth point. You'll find that statement there. And you can see the reason. If people go in a sanitarium parlor or one of our chapels and they see a play acted out and they get excited over that, then pretty soon they hear that there's a good play down at the theater. Why not go and see that? Why not indeed? It is the principle that's wrong. Beefsteak isn't any better served in a church basement than it is down at the roadhouse. Is it? Coffee isn't any better served after a Sunday night service than it is over at the restaurant. It has the same intoxicating effect. And when we move drama, either three-dimension live plays, onto the platform of our young people's societies, our schools, our sanitariums, or projected on the TV screen or the movie screen, when we move those things into our lives, we are moving in the wine of Babylon. Now, I want to show you a statement from the General Conference on this. This isn't some peculiar idea in some little corner. The leaders of this denomination have for decades been warning us on this matter. I have here in my files literally dozens of statements, page after page through the years. The General Conference men, our General Conference Committee have written. I'm going to read just one statement. This is from a document entitled An Appeal from the General Conference. It's on page 6. And while this was an action taken a number of years ago, this was sent me direct from Washington from our General Conference office by one of the officers just last year. Listen. We are cognizant of influences which have brought into our services of worship elements that lower our standards and injure our work. We ask our churches to give greater attention to good order, proper decorum, and reverence, while they set themselves against all excessive formalism and ritualism, including choir processionals and recessionals in the conduct of our Sabbath services. There is an apparent endeavor in some instances to bring the spirit of entertainment into church services, Sabbath school exercises, missionary volunteer meetings, and evangelistic meetings. This should be guarded against, and the Bible given its rightful place as the center of all our services and programs. Dramatization and acting should have no place among us. May I repeat that? Dramatization and acting should have no place among us. Pageants and playets should be avoided, and save in the case of some dignified representation to make real what our missionaries are facing in mission lands, makeup and costuming should not be countenanced. Let us hold to the plain and simple and discard the elaborate, the exaggerated, the gaudy, and showy. Now in closing, from the book Evangelism, page 266, 267. Satan's ruling passion is to pervert the intellect and cause men to long for shows and theatrical performances. Who is it gets people to long for shows and theatrical performances? Satan. Then on 267, speaking of Jesus, there was no falsity, no acting in what he did. Aren't you glad, friends? He never pretended. He never pretended. He was the truth, he spoke the truth, he lived the truth. Again, page 396. We just read what Jesus did. Now it says on 396, we are to keep as far from the theatrical and the extraordinary as Christ kept in his work. How far are we to keep from the theatrical? Just as far as Jesus did. And whenever we can find Jesus lining up the apostles and saying, now Peter, you pretend to be Moses, and Andrew, you be Aaron, and you be the others, and we will reenact the striking of the rock, or the giving of the law, or the worship of the golden calf, or the march to Kadesh Barnea. Whenever we can find anything like that in the life of Jesus, it'll be time for us to start it. What do you say, friends? 137 of this book, Evangelism. Not one jot or tittle of anything theatrical is to be brought into our work. How much shall we use? Not a jot or tittle. Very well, I leave these great principles with you this evening. And I wish you would commit to memory that last part of our opening text, John 18:37, where Jesus tells us what he was born for. What was it? To bear witness of the truth. Shall we stand? Yes, Lord, we thank thee for the beauty of thy truth. We thank thee for the joy of reality. We thank thee that we do not have to leave the true and the real in order to find pleasure. Oh, we pray that thou wilt help us as we come in contact with the poor people of this world that have become intoxicated with the wine of Babylon, literal and symbolic. Help us to show them something better. And may our lives reveal that we indeed have discovered the secret of true joy, the real, the genuine. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.